All right. Hello and welcome again to Letter of Law interviews. My name is Sarthak Bhardwaj, and today I'm thrilled to be in conversation with someone I've wanted to get on this podcast for a long while, Pranjal Kishore. Pranjal is an advocate based out of Delhi. Uh, he contributes regularly to many platforms like Live Law. His book review of Rohit's People's Constitution was published in the EPW, Indian Express, and so on and so forth. So Pranjal, thank you so much for meeting with me today. I'm so glad we could do this.
No, thank you for having me here. And like I told you earlier, the only reason I agreed to do this was because you told me this is a platform for young lawyers. And I
Yeah.
don't claim to be a successful lawyer or a super lawyer or anything of that sort. I claim to be young. It is disputed at times, but I am a lawyer, so we
So
can have that conversation.
fantastic. So before I ask anything else, what is item 16 Pranjal Kishore petitioner? That's
Oh,
so.
sorry. This is something I did not realize. So the Gujarat High Court uses Zoom. And this was for a matter last week. That was last I used Zoom. I think I just clicked on this link. I didn't realize I am still logged in as item 16. I was item 16. The matter did not reach last week. It's coming up again sometime next week.
All right.
So this is actually for a matter before the Gujarat High Court.
Fantastic. Well, so first of all, Pranjal, my initial question to you is that you are an independent litigating lawyer right now, and right after law school, you threw yourself into the world of litigation. So, what made you decide or go for litigation, considering the fact, and do correct me if I'm wrong here, most people from national law schools tend to choose a corporate job over litigation. So, what made you choose this line of work?
Uh, I on so long answer short. I did not leave myself with much of a choice by the time I came to the fourth and the fifth year because my grade points weren't that great, etc. But I never, even when I joined law school in 2010, I didn't really see myself working a corporate job. Like all good Biharis, my aim was not my aim per se, but yeah, my rough idea was to probably sit for the UPSC. And it was somewhere during the course of the internships. I have never even interned at a firm. All of my internships were at different litigation offices, chambers, somewhere with judges also. So I think it's during the course of that I realized that this is something that I want to do. And I think the things which actually excite me throughout, I've been a quizzer through school and college. I've been into debating and mooting in college. So I think that satisfaction of having won or even the feeling of having lost, those are things which actually motivate me. So I wasn't, into things like publishing a paper in college. That wasn't something I did at all because there is no winning or losing there. So I think it's that adrenaline rush that being in a competition gives you is what sort of pushed me into litigation. The other thing is something I vaguely thought of at that time, and this is something that has turned out to be true. Is that as a lawyer, there are certain things, or as a human being, there are certain issues you care about, certain things which you see go wrong. But as a lawyer, it is within your power to do something about it. So I think that is really what motivated me to get into litigation after college.
Fantastic. So there's a lot that I want to ask flowing from your answer. Given the fact that I'm currently in law school and most of the viewers who watch this podcast are in law school, uh, a general perception about litigation is that in the initial few years, the pay is very less, and that generally deters people from throwing themselves into the field of litigation. So, what do you say to people, young law students who are still figuring out what they want to do, and they're being dissuaded to go for litigation for this reason? What's your take on this?
See, now here, this is an answer which I would like to preface with a caveat. And in fact, probably the whole of the interview. So I come from a certain position of privilege. And I have all the possible privileges one could possibly have in terms of gender, in terms of caste, in terms of economic status. I have never really had to turn to my father for financial help in the last 5 years. But, just knowing that he's there, that's quite there have been times I go, well, let me take a reckless financial decision. Kuch hua to, there is someone. I have also, that's also, I would say a privilege in that sense that I ran into Mr. Sanjay Hegde, who was my senior for 2 years. So I've had these certain privileges of having a good family backing me, a good senior backing me, and of course, everything else that flows from my gender and from my caste. Having said all of that, I still think it is difficult. So pay when I began was peanuts. It more than half of it actually went on paying rent. So to get by, then I had started teaching law students. I had started teaching at IMS, and this is for the CLAT and
Right.
the other entrance. And this actually turned out to be a very satisfying experience, because after spending a week running around, so the first year of my practice was at trial courts. And this was a very, very strange experience coming out of college. And, college people knew you. You were mooting and debating and quizzing, and people knew you. And the first day that I joined my first office, they'd asked me to go to the NGT. There was a batch matter. And nothing had to be done. They just said, just go. These are the appearances. Appearances mark karke aa jana. Now, this is something you hear often. Appearances mark karke aa jana.
Okay.
Now, 10 days out of college, I had no idea. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to ask. And this was in a very crowded NGT. But the pride was still there. The pride of being someone in college.
Right.
Now, how do I go ask someone ki mujhe appearance mark karne nahi aata? So I roamed around clueless. And eventually, I think after everyone had left, I found the court master. I asked him what to do. He told me that this is how appearances are marked at the NGT. So it was very, very different from college. But coming back to your original question, the pay at the beginning wasn't that great. I had found a way to survive, and I slowly, very, very slowly, I see the culture changing a little bit. I think seniors have been able to pay a little more to juniors now. And, this is something which people always often tell us. Like, I have some of my juniors who speak to me and they tell me, I understand that pehle 4-5 saal, the money I earn isn't important. But why I keep telling them to join a senior who pays a decent sum, I will not get into the sum itself, but pays a decent sum, it indicates the respect that the senior has for the junior. Now, this is something that is very, very important. If he respects you enough to pay you well, he will respect you enough to value your time, to nurture your talents and all of that. So, and it's an important decision. I think the first office that you join, in terms of the work you do there, in terms of what you're paid there, I think it's a very important decision as to the first office you join. It is tough, but I think put your head down, work hard for a few years, and things start to happen. I don't know how they start to happen, but you're suddenly getting phone calls from random people saying ye matter hai. Someone gave you a reference. So it'll happen eventually.
Great. Fantastic. From what I understand, you've been doing litigation right after law school, right? And so you threw yourself into the world of litigation. So how has the journey been for you from starting out as a litigator to now? And try to stop before the period of you going independent, because I have an entire segment for that. So what has it been like for you? What are some of the experiences that you've amassed, and how has it been overall?
So I started off with a small office which did work on the civil and criminal side. Now, I was a little unfortunate when I started, because this was in 2015. So if anyone is old enough to remember, or if people were practicing at that time, so this was a time when this whole pecuniary jurisdiction of the Delhi High Court issue was happening, and a lot of strikes had happened. First, the High Court bar went on strike, then the lower court bar went on strike, the trial court bar, think you're not supposed to say lower court. So the
All right.
trial court bar went on strike. And the pecuniary jurisdiction was eventually, for the Delhi High Court, was increased from, I believe, 20 lakhs to 2 crores. Now, this started a process of cases being transferred. Cases were transferred from the High Court to the district courts, and then they would assign it to a specific civil judge or to a additional district judge. So the first 5 or 6 months of my practice actually went in all of this. So I was basically going to a lot of courts. Like I went to the High Court, a transfer order has been passed. Then you go to the district judge who's received the files, who assigns it to a civil judge who's hearing the case. So I spent a lot of my time in the first 4 or 5 months doing this. Work eventually started to come in, regular work in that office started to come in towards the end of the year, towards the end of 2015. But I had sort of made up my mind to start off on the, with a Supreme Court lawyer after a year at the trial court. Now this again, if someone were to ask me, I would say spend at least 2 years of your initial practice at the trial courts. 2 years, preferably on the civil side, because there's a lot of drafting and things which you will never do on the appellate side. 2016, I joined an AOR in the Supreme Court, and the first difference that you see immediately when you join an advocate on records office, this is where you're drafting a lot of special leave petitions and appeals. So the first difference was that, a month ago, when I was drafting a civil suit, I was making out jurisdiction in my plaint. I was making out valuation. I had to ensure that, if it's a specific performance suit.
Right.
So there are certain pleadings which are needed. Here at the Supreme Court, you're given a format and you have to put things into that format. And every special leave petition that you draft has to have the same prayer. It's a standard prayer. If you make a different prayer, the registry is going to mark defects. Your matter is never going to be listed.
I feel like I should take notes.
No, the basic difference in why it is important to work on the original side at least for 2 years is because that's where you will learn drafting.
Right.
The Supreme Court is a straight out format. If you go even a little here and there from the format, the registry is most likely to mark defects. In the year that I worked with the AOR, this was a time when my senior then, Mr. Anil Mishra, he wasn't dedicating a lot of time to the office. He was spending quite a bit of time. Actually, the word for that is business development. Okay. He was spending a lot of time getting clientele and traveling and things. So that year, I actually really learned how to run a practice in that sense. I was dealing with clients. I was dealing with the clerks. A lot of my learning at that time came from the clerks who were in office. And Mr. Mishra was assisting Mr. Sanjay Hegde, who at that time was amicus in the Nirbhaya case appeals that were going on before the Supreme Court. And Mr. Hegde had been appointed as amicus for the accused. So that's when I got to work at length with Mr. Hegde. And I remember the judgment in Nirbhaya came around May 2017, 4th or 5th of May 2017. And just before the summer vacations, Mr. Hegde asked me if I was interested in joining him after the vacations. And 2017 to 2019, 2 years where I would say was the making of me as a lawyer in that sense, because I think I was a little more mature from when I first started out. And I was Sir's only junior in those 2 years. So there was a lot of learning in that sense. All the work that came to me to office had to be done by me. So that was something that really worked out well for me. Last year in July is when I went independent.
Fantastic. So picking up from where you ended this, when did you finally, I mean, of course, last year in July, but how did you decide to go independent? And what was the thought process that went into it? And a second part to this question is, what do you suggest young lawyers who are practicing right now? What do you say to them who are thinking of going independent based on your experiences?
So, see, when I think about it now, I sometimes I laugh. I don't know what I was thinking. I had a few briefs and I had there was some work I had, there was some work I was hoping to have. But no, so just coming back to again the senior that I had, for all that he taught me in the 2 years, and of course, as grateful as I am to him for that, I think he nudged me out at the right time. He sort of indicated that, look, you've learned what you had to learn, and you have to sort of chart your own path now. And so this was, I think, the January to May session in 2019, where Mr. Hegde had a lot of outstation matters.
Okay.
And we were traveling constantly. So what happens when you're traveling constantly? So you're taking an early morning flight. So you're together from say 7 in the morning. You reach the place, you reach the hotel, you shower, change, you rush to the court, you finish your matter, go back to the airport, take a flight. So we were spending some 17, 18 hour work days together, and in a way we were bored of each other. There was very little we had to say to each other. So that happened. So I think that's how he's never told me that, but that's how I felt.
I want him to watch this episode now and see what he has to say about this.
So I think so one of those journeys we were traveling to Chandigarh for a matter, and he said, look, I know you are comfortable working for me and I am comfortable having you here, but I don't think this is good for either of us. And I think that was all the hinting that I needed. And so just before the summer vacation, I tried to think of what I do. I thought, okay, I have certain matters. This is what is lined up. And this is what I had saved. Now, I'd never thought at the age of 28, I'd be giving this advice to people, but saving money is important. And I had money saved.
Right.
Basic idea being, okay, I can get through the next 6 months if I don't earn anything. And if I don't earn anything for 6 months, I might as well pack up and leave. So I think that's something that my first senior taught me, have money for 6 months. So I had that money. So that's when I decided, okay, I told sir, he said, oh, where do you intend to sit, as in where do you want to have your office? I said, I'll figure that out. And he was then kind enough to offer me space in the office. So, I've been sitting in this office rent free for over a year. And I help out in whatever way I can, but he's never demanded rent. So I think those are the things which are difficult when you're starting off, because
Right.
there's household rent to pay, especially for someone not from Delhi. That's the only privilege which I don't have, that I'm not from Delhi. So you've got household rent to pay, you've got office rent to pay, you've got staff. So here I suddenly, I've not had to pay rent. There are no office expenses because sir's help there. Now coming to how this thing has been actually. So it's been good. It's actually been better than I expected. Except the month of April, but the month of April this year was horrendous for everyone I know.
Right.
Because courts had shut down, video conferencing hadn't started. But it is also, I would say, a little tiring, sometimes a little frustrating, because so when you're working in an office, you're getting a salary, so you don't have to worry about a lot of things, and you can focus on the law. So, like for an AOR's office, if you have to draft something, you have the documents, you draft the petition, and that's all. That's what your job is. But when you're running an office, so you draft the petition. So my regular work day or my regular work week is there is always some draft or the other which has to be sent to the client for approval. So I finish off drafting, I send it to the guy for approval. Then I will call up someone else where bills are pending. So I have to follow up on my pending bills. Once those calls are over, then there'll always be some client, some lawyer from a high court who'd inquired regarding a filing in Delhi. So I'll call him up, sir, what happened? You called me. So there is so much time, spent running the establishment in that sense. If there are matters where you're briefing two seniors, for example. Now, both of them need different notes. They all have their different formats that they are comfortable with. Whether the senior's bill has been paid, whether the guy's TAN number has been sent to the... So there are so many little things that you're doing. And what happens is that sometimes law ends up becoming a little secondary. So I have tried to ensure that hasn't happened so far. But every now and then, there are times I'm actually having this year, I've been sitting with this Shiva Rao, the framing of the Constitution, I've been reading it. I think this is the most deep reading that I've done in the recent past, because most of it is just trying to get things together.
Right.
So that is what is difficult. but then it is extremely satisfying, in that sense that, of course, you're responsible to a client and you're responsible to his brief. But besides that, you're not really answering to anyone in terms of taking leaves. I honestly wasn't even answering to anyone earlier. I think all my bosses were like that. They held you responsible for your work. But all my bosses never required me to ask for a leave. I told them I am going somewhere. I never had to ask permission for leaves. But the freedom that this practice brings you, there is a fair amount of money also if things go well. And most importantly, I think, at least for me, the ability to help someone out. Every now and then there will be someone who will be coming to you who's in genuine trouble, and the ability to help them out. That's something which no other profession gives you. So difficult, but extremely, extremely satisfying.
Great. I believe you have something else that you want to say, because I think you're pondering over, you're trying to collect your thoughts. So I
was just thinking of, I go off on rambles with these answers. They're not helping me by asking open-ended questions. So
no, in fact, for our viewers, I was speaking with Sir regarding the structure of this talk. So I mentioned that, he likes to chat a lot, but I mentioned, so that's the only quality you need for a podcast setup like this.
I also told you that I like to be called sir when I was in college, but I was an imbecile back then. So it looks very, very stupid now.
But it's a force of habit for me.
Since college, someone didn't call you Pranjal sir. It's like, what happened to this guy? But I feel very, very stupid for, ever having expected people to call me Pranjal sir back in the day.
Right. So Pranjal, coming back to the whole time spent in law school, and then after that, you've mentioned that even through law schools you did internships in litigation chambers, and then you've been a litigating lawyer all throughout. What do you suggest that students who go to a chamber for internships, what should firstly the student expect out of that, and what is it that the people they're interning under expect from students? Because I believe that there's a lot of uncertainty about internships in general. So what do you have to say about this?
See, so this is something, in fact, I'm glad you asked this. This is something I tell all the interns who work with me. See, it's ultimately a lot of the practice of law is about making relationships. Because see, you will practice, but someone needs to send you work for you to be able to practice. But so what happened with me was that I had done an internship at the end of the first year at the Central Information Commission. And I'd met someone there, Mr. Aditya Prasad, who is about 3.5 years older to me. And he at that time was a student at the law faculty. And I was working as a part-time consultant with Mr. Shailesh Gandhi, who was an information commissioner. He took a liking to me. He took a liking to the work that I did. And I genuinely believed I'd worked hard in that internship, as hard as a 19-year-old would at that time. Now, we stayed in touch, and cut to 5th year of college. I was interning at a place which, again, did a bit of trial court work. And I had interned at that place 6 months earlier. Like the summer internship was at that place, and I was doing the winter internship. And this was my last internship there. And somehow the first week, I wasn't very happy. So I was speaking to this Mr. Prasad. I was telling, I've been interning here, but I don't really like it. So he says, why don't you come over to my office? And if you are good, if they like your work, they'll pay you some 3,000, 5,000 rupees a stipend. So I thought, might as well. I'm not liking it here anyway, and 5,000 rupees as a student for a stipend was a good amount. So I said, okay. So he arranged that internship for me. After the internship, those guys asked me to join them when I finished college. So that became my first office. Now, that office essentially had 3 people, one of whom handled the litigation at the trial court and the high court and tribunals. One of them handled transactional work, and the third person was an AOR in the Supreme Court. Now, around the time that I was finishing 7-8 months in that office, the AOR was starting off his own practice.
I see.
So I went along with him. with the AOR, I met Mr. Hegde, so I went along there. And then so see, people are always watching you. People are always judging the work that you do. And ultimately, it's your work that speaks for you. So the idea is to work very, very hard. Like even today, so even if I'm sending off a letter which is one page, I will agonize over it, read it, take a print and read it. Well, there shouldn't be a grammatical mistake. There shouldn't be anything wrong. And those things sometimes, as hard as you try, those things will happen. But ultimately, your work has to speak for you. There has to be an obsession with getting things perfect. It might or might not work out, but there has to be that obsession. Now, coming to interns, so that's the first thing, because just ensure that you work hard, and do your work well, because you don't know how people there will be able to help you in the future. That's number one. Number two, I've realized as someone who now handles interns. So in office, I used to handle Mr. Hegde's internship applications. In fact, he still farmed those often, so I keep getting those internship mails. So our policy was to not say no. If a person, if a person sent me an internship email for July, the response was never, no, we can't take you. The response was, no, your CV doesn't meet our requirements. The response was either you're welcome, or look, July is full, does August work? August is full. And we would go on. We would go on till we could accommodate that person. Now, because of this inclusive policy, there were times we ended up with some 12, 13 interns.
Okay.
And what I've realized, even having those 10 interns, if there were 2 interns who were good, there were 2 interns who were making an impact, it would take a week and you would realize, okay, these are the people. So just be proactive, keep asking for work. Also, see, there is no need to impress or try to impress by talking of things that you don't know of.
Right.
So I sometimes I see interns, falling into that trap. So just I would say before you go to the chamber, try and get a basic idea of the sort of practice that chamber has, and then work very hard. And I'll keep saying this again and again. It's something I didn't do through college, but I believe eventually you have to work hard. There is really no other way.
Right. Great. Now, although we are running short of time, I mean, there's nobody stopping us, but so well, I'll come to the final set of questions. So, having practiced in Delhi for several years now, surely you must have witnessed some exciting and fun moments in courtroom. So, can you share some of those experiences with us?
See, I have seen things like in a Saket court, 2 lawyers grabbing each other's collars and saying to bahar mil, and the judge saying कि जब कॉलर यहाँ पकड़ ही लिया है तो बाकी भी यहीं कर दो.
Oh my God.
क्या करना है? But no, all sorts of things, all sorts of things. I think all of us have seen those videos of things that have happened on VCs now.
Yeah.
I also believe live law, bar and bench, with all the live tweeting, have, even though we don't have that open access to court yet, but they've made things much more transparent in that sense. That is also problematic at times, because sometimes you have to argue a bad case and you have to make arguments, which you have to make them with a straight face.
Right.
But then that gets reported live tweeted on live law with some witty comment that the judge may have made. So that gets a little embarrassing.
Right.
So that's I think courtroom banter and all of that is real. It happens. I see. At the same time, this is coming from my experience of having taught kids for CLAT. Something like suits. I think suits that way has really contributed to people wanting to take up the law.
Yeah.
ऐसा बनना है, ऐसा बनना है. I till recently had a bottle of Macallan which I got some 5 years ago, because 5 years ago I was infatuated how Spectre Macallan पीता है.
Right.
So I kept it with myself for 5 years, saying कि कुछ special होगा तो खोलेंगे, and something happened now, so I opened it. But see, those things happen on TV. Those things, and they happen on American TV. No one's going to pull off what he pulls off in court here. So don't have unrealistic expectations of what the courtroom experience will be like. So it is a lot of fun. Again, very very satisfying, but it is a fair bit of hard work.
Right. So another thing, it's a very important question that I forgot to ask you earlier. Uh, Even though you said that you didn't write much in college, I mean, you didn't get a paper published, but now I see there's a lot of publication work that you're doing. So do you feel that for lawyers who are in practice, is it necessary for them to write on matters of law and get their work out in various newspapers or journals and things like that?
See, so I personally think writing, really helps you clear your head. I was never writing again. That first chance came to me because Mr. Hegde was abroad, and uh, he got me to co-author something, and then we co-authored a number of pieces over the years. Then again, when I went independent, there was something that Business Standard wanted us to co-author, and he actually sent an email saying, I'm happy to lend my name to this, but I would like to go for this piece to go as a Pranjal solo. And I think the editor got the hint after that. So except maybe one or two pieces, I wrote most pieces after that on my own. That Sir and I are currently writing on a book which is working on a book which is extremely delayed. Having said all of that, I think I have stopped writing in the last 4 5 months, because after a point there is only so much of critique that you can give courts in the country. Now, what do you say? They keep doing it. So you criticize judgments after judgments. You criticize them for evading certain issues, but that's not working clearly. There is only so much critical analysis you can do. I honestly sometimes it becomes a little difficult to engage with the sort of precedent that is coming out of courts. And I had said this somewhere else, that some things deserve a rant and not a critique. So I have continued my rants, but my critiques have stopped. But this is something I had tried out, and I don't know if people can try this out. So writing Twitter threads, for example, putting out an idea in 140 odd characters and telling a story through bullet points. I think that is something which is very, very important for a lawyer, because we get matters at the Supreme Court which have a history of 20 odd years. So putting the crux of the matters into bullet points, into short bullet points, into 10 tweets or 20 tweets, I think that is something which is potentially useful for lawyers. I have tried that on a couple of occasions. Obviously, those threads never got posted, but it really did help me clear my head. So I think yes, writing is important, either to critique and hope that things fall in place, which doesn't seem to be happening, but otherwise, just to clear your own head around certain ideas.
Right. In fact, for our viewers, you should definitely follow Pranjal on Twitter. He's one of the wittiest lawyers on Twitter. He tweets under the name of Junior Counsel, I believe. And there's his whole thread on young lawyers, law students especially, starting off blogs with the name Lex in front of them. Really, really clicked with a lot of people. Well, and this can be my final question, sir. I see a lot of books behind you, even though you've mentioned that you're putting interminably long hours and don't really have much time. But earlier, or maybe now, did you read some books that have had a huge impact on you? And these may not be restricted to just legal books, but books in general. Do you enjoy reading? And if yes, what kind of books?
Again, I really don't know what I read last. Uh, I have read extensively throughout. Uh, I think, but something I still keep going back to again and again is one of the first things I read was the Sherlock Holmes
Right.
series. And I think if I just want to get my mind off, I still have the entire, like, 2 volumes. So those 54 short stories and 4 novels, I have read them about 10 times each. I haven't done that exercise after school of doing the whole volume, but so I think if there are times I need to relax, get off law, those are the books I end up reading. But I think for lawyers, there are so many autobiographies which you absolutely must read.
Right.
Mr. Nariman, or two books which I somehow keep going back to are both of Granville Austin's books. So I think
Right.
all that I read now, all that I've read in the last 4-5 years is related to the law.
Right.
But I think besides the law, I really enjoy reading autobiographies and biographies. All of this is basically the SCC volumes, which are now dying out because we are now working on SCC online and sending e-copies of soft copies of judgments across on email.
Right.
But yeah.
Great. And with this, we come to the end of this conversation. Pranjal, thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking with me. This was a very spontaneous decision. In fact, we were still trying to decide on when to do this. And a couple of hours ago, Pranjal texted me and said, "Hey, this is a long shot, but do you want to do it now?" And it just happened. And thank you for speaking so candidly on so many important topics. And I'm very, very happy to have done this with you.
Sure. Thank you for having me here. Thank you.